a look at how we can enhance our images using the Basic panel in Lightroom's Develop module. So at the top of the Basic panel, we can see that the first option is to set our white balance, and there are 3 different ways that we can do so. Because I photographed this image as a raw file, I have a number of different options that I can choose from the list to change the white balance. If you capture raw files, this list is going to be much shorter. I can also use the temperature and tint sliders in order to just visually change the white balance, because remember, most of the time we might want to correct for a color cast, but there are other times when we might actually want to warm up or cool down our image. So you have total control when you're using the temperature and tint sliders. Now, if I know that there's something in my image that should be neutral, then I can use the white balance tool. I'll go ahead and select it and then position my cursor over the area that I know should be neutral, and then click in that area in order to set the white balance. If we move down to the tone area, you can see that we have a lot of different options here. As you can see, all of the sliders are set to 0 at their default, but we can move any of them to the left to decrease or any of them to the right to increase the values. We might want to start by clicking the Auto button. You can see that the histogram changed quite significantly when I selected Auto. Lightroom expanded the dynamic range of the image, making the lighter areas brighter and also making sure that there was a black point. Of course, I can always refine any of the sliders. So for example, if I think that my highlights are too bright and I want to see a little bit more detail here in the front of the temple, I'll move my highlight slider down to the left. If I want to brighten my shadow areas to see underneath the eaves here, then I can move my shadow slider to the right. If I want to make overall changes to exposure, I can move this a little bit to the left just to darken it down a bit, and to make the image pop a little, I'll increase the contrast a bit. Of course, all of these sliders are non-destructive, so any changes that I make can be refined at a later time. If we scoot down to the presence area, we can add a little bit of clarity to our image. That is also going to make our image pop a little bit. What it does is it looks at the edges in the midtones of the image and it adds a little bit of contrast. So it makes the darker side darker and the lighter side lighter, which fools your eye into thinking that those areas are sharper. We can also increase the vibrance, or we could decrease the vibrance. You'll notice that the vibrance slider is a relative slider, so even at -100, there still is a little bit of color in my image. I want to reset the vibrance slider, so I'm going to double-click on the word vibrance. The saturation slider is an absolute slider. When I move the saturation slider all the way over, that's as saturated as this image gets. If I move it all the way over to the left, you'll notice that the image looks like it's grayscale because all of the saturation has been removed. So that's really the difference between vibrance and saturation. Vibrance is a relative slider, saturation is absolute. And vibrance has a little bit of a bias, so if you're working with portraits, you might want to increase the vibrance if you've got a portrait that was shot on location, because the vibrance slider will increase your blues and your greens, giving the image a little bit more punch, while it's a little bit more subtle on the flesh tones in the image. All right, let's go ahead and increase the saturation slider a little to give it a bit more color. Once I've done that, I think the image is looking a little bit too warm, so I'll scroll back up to my temperature and tint sliders and just move them down just a bit. I'll also mention that the histogram is interactive. If you prefer, you can actually click and drag right in the histogram itself, as opposed to moving any of the sliders. And of course, if you don't like what you've last done, you can always undo it by using Command-Z or Control-Z to undo what you've done. If we want to see a quick preview of before and after, I can toggle the backslash key. If I tap it once, there's the before image. Tap it again, there's the after image. So as you can see, it's just that easy to enhance your images using the Basic panel in Lightroom. My name is Julianne Cost. Thanks for watching.